In this video, we're going to take a look at the pattern matrix. In the previous video, we ran an EFA based on these settings. So here is that EFA, and we ended up with a pretty nice pattern matrix. You can see here it says good factor structure. All of them have primary loadings greater than or equal to 0.5 with no significant cross loadings, indicating good convergent and discriminant validity. And if we were to sort this, just click on any of these up here, except the variable. Variable resets the view. But click on that, you can see we have a nice, clean pattern matrix. If it had any violations in it, those would be colored orange. Now, there's more over here. We'll take a look at that in just a moment. Let's run this a little bit messier. Let's, instead of saying 5 factors, let's fix it to 6 and run that. This is just for the sake of learning. So we go to the pattern matrix, and we have a 6th factor here. And it looks like it split up system satisfaction 5 and 6 from the rest. And it actually worked pretty well. Well, that doesn't help us to learn today. But one thing we can do is take a look at these 2 sets of variables. What I did there was left click and drag, and then right click and drag, and that creates 2 groups to view over here in the discriminant map area. You'll see in this discriminant map, we have clearly 1 set for anxiety, 1 set for enjoyment, 1 set for decision quality, and then we have these guys over here for system satisfaction. So they all occupy their own space in this 3-dimensional plot, which you can zoom in and zoom out and scroll around. Now, if we want to try to discriminate these, in fact, it looks like we have skill acquisition here. We may want to try to separate skill acquisition from these others. So let's take a look at this. Let's go back to 5 factors, and then I'm going to highlight skill acquisition and all these others. Let's go like this. Setup, do it at 5 factors, run, and pattern matrix, still highlighted. But you can see over here, they are somewhat related. If I want to isolate these constructs, I can click on this right here, and then it just plots those 2 groups, but still using the loadings and metrics from this EFA. I can also change how I'm looking at it. Instead, use a cosine or a unit length, and it changes just the way we view it. Now, if these were highly overlapping, I might see which ones are, and then decide to omit the one that is truly overlapping between them. Perhaps we can find a factor like that. But while we're here, let me show you what else we see here. First, it has an option for showing holes. That's just to highlight the space. And then showing the centroid is just an arrow from the center to the center of that grouping, the center of that hole. Distance is just the way we compute the distance and normalize the values. View is in 3D or 2D. If it's in 2D, we can't drag around and rotate it because it's just in 2D. I'll put it back to 3D. Notice it also produces a stress score. Lower is better, as it says there in that tooltip. And less than 0.1 is great. Between 0.1 and 0.2, as you can see here, is moderate. And so we should use caution if we were considering these in 2 dimensions. Let me unisolate them. And you can see in 3D, we have fairly high stress. But in 5 dimensions, which is how many factors we have here, our stress is still just moderate, which means we probably have good discriminant validity. Now, let's take a look at a messier example. I'm going to go back to setup and then deselect everything and find one that is messier. For example, what if we selected social desirability and anxiety and run that? Let's see what it says. Ooh, yeah, we get a true mess. Looks like anxiety works pretty well, but social desirability has a lot of low loadings and inverted loadings. Well, if I hover over them, I can see why. This one says, I'm always willing to admit when I make a mistake. I always try to practice what I preach. I never resent being asked to return a favor. I have never been irked when people expressed ideas different from my own. I have never deliberately said something that hurts somebody's feelings. I like to gossip at times. Ooh, we flipped right there. There have been occasions when I took advantage of someone. I sometimes try to get even rather than forgive and forget. At times, I have really insisted on having things my own way. There have been occasions when I felt like smashing things. You can see that it flipped right here on number 6, and we had negatives here and positives here. So these are in 2 different directions. So what I would do is go back to the setup, maybe fix this to 3, or just do it based on eigenvalues and see if it does it anyway. Here we go, pattern matrix. It did naturally split them into 3 factors. And we can see over here there are 3 groupings, but the loading for number 5 is kind of odd. It stays over here on the second factor because it's a stronger negative loading than it is a positive loading, meaning it's just on the same vector, just inverted. So if I select these guys and select these guys with right click, then you can see this kind of mess here. This one right here, that's number 5, is in the same angle here, just on the opposite side. And really it is closer to these guys. So I could just unselect it, and you can see now we have 2 clear groupings. This is just the oddball. So how about I get rid of number 5? I'm just going to go rerun this, but right-click number 5. Run it again. And go look at the pattern matrix. Getting rid of number 5, smashed it together. So let's go back to setup, fix it to 3, run it again. And go to the pattern matrix. There we go. Nice separated loadings here. And that's how you would use this to discriminate factors. Notice the stress now is 0, which is ideal. Anytime you do have weak loadings, a recommendation is made to try different setup approaches before deleting a variable. Well, I hope you found that helpful.